was a big unsightly place, if you might term it that way, just where they used to keep all the sacks of asbestos.
The first stage in making asbestos pipes is to break up the raw asbestos. In the disintegrating room, reject pipes and raw asbestos were first mixed together with shovels.
Did the breaking up and mixing of the pipes cause any dust?
Oh, yes. Yes, it did.
What ventilation was there over that pile?
I don't think there was any over the pile.
You're quite certain there was no extractor fan over the pile?
Quite certain over that, yes.
Regulation 2A. Mixing or blending by hand of asbestos shall not be carried on except with an exhaust draft effected by mechanical means.
In other words, there should have been a fan continuously removing this dust.
Was there a fan in that corner?
No, none whatsoever.
Could there have been one there that you didn't see?
No, no, just a blank wall.
You're quite sure there wasn't one in the ceiling?
No, no.
Do you know it's illegal not to have a fan in that mixing area?
No, I haven't really given it a thought.
Had you read the asbestos regulations at that time?
Well, I've never seen any to read.
The second stage in the process was the feeding of the mixture into the disintegrating machine.
Probably one of my other mates who used to take it in turns, and we used to have to sit on the side of this disintegrator and put your head under, and you used to have to start feeding it by hand. You see, you couldn't just throw it down because it would have jammed everything.
What about the ventilation in the hopper?
There was one over there, about 6-inch pipe. It came up in the top of the cowl and had an elbow bent over. But that was no good at all, wasn't that?
How do you know it was no good?
Because my mates and I used to tear paper, light it, and throw it up, and it used to come back down again, still burn.
Why did you throw the paper up?
Because it was a big laugh, really, for what it was and for what it did.
Regulation 1C. An exhaust draft effected by mechanical means which prevents the escape of asbestos dust into the air of any room in which persons work shall be provided and maintained for chambers, hoppers or other structures into which loose asbestos is delivered or passes. You're quite sure it didn't work?
Yes, I'm positive.
Do you know it's illegal not to have an effective exhaust draft in that area?
Well, I should imagine so, really, but we used to tell the foreman, but he used to say he'd see what he could do, and that was about as far as it went.
We can't ask the foreman what he did because he's dead, and by 1950 the disintegrating room had been replaced by a new system. But last year, 20 years after that change, a man who had worked there developed asbestosis.
Did anyone at Cape mention that asbestos dust might be dangerous?
No, no.
You're quite sure about that?
I'm quite sure about that.
When did you become foreman in the carding room?
About 12 months after I got there.
1954?
Mm.
What happened when the big carding rollers were cleaned?
In the early days they were cleaned out by men using hand stricklers.
What's that mean?
The machines were stripped and screened with Hessian sheeting, and the direction of rotation was reversed, and the hand stricklers were applied by 2 men with a sort of comb attached to boards, and these combed out all the dirt, or cleaned out all the dirt and trash from between the teeth on the card clothing on the main swifts.
How had the dirt and stuff got in there?
Through the normal processing.
As in the warehouse, as in the disintegrating room, it was a question of dust. The whole reason for the 1931 regulations was that asbestos dust is extremely dangerous. Carding machines needed cleaning once a month. It was one of the dustiest processes, and it was therefore governed by two strict regulations.
Regulation 1B. An exhaust draft effected by mechanical means which prevents the escape of asbestos dust into the air of any room in which persons work, shall be provided and maintained for cleaning and grinding of the cylinders or other parts of a carding machine.
Had this regulation been observed, there would have been virtually no dust in the air of the carding room. It was not. While the machine was being cleaned, it was normal practice to switch off the main ventilation plant for maintenance, and there was nothing else to take the asbestos dust away. The regulations allowed the card rollers to be cleaned by machine, but the method you see here, called hand strickling, was specifically covered by Regulation 6B.
Regulation 6B. On and after the 1st of September 1932, such cleaning shall not be done by means of hand strickles or other hand tools.
Cape continued to use hand strickles until 1962.
Is cleaning by hand quicker than doing it automatically?
A lot quicker.
By about how much?
Well, you can clean a card out in a matter of 3/4 of an hour by hand, whereas it'll take possibly the best part of a day to clean out by an automatic process. I gathered that it must be against regulations somewhere along the line, because we were ordered to desist if ever there was any sign of the factory inspector or any such person about.
What level did that order come from?
Well, normally we got a phone call from the office to tell us that the factory inspector was on the premises, and just have a check-up and make sure that everything was as it should be.
And as it should be meant no hand strickling going on. What did you feel like when you got those phone calls?
Well, I thought it was a bit of a fraud.
Bit of a fraud? Did you feel anything more serious about it than that?
I can't say that I did, no.
Did you feel you ought to have told the factory inspectorate what was going on?
Well, I didn't think it was for me to tell the factory inspectorate what they should do. I don't know what their entitlements are with respect to entering factory premises, but I should have thought the factory inspector would walk around any factory premises without at first notifying the management that he was there.
In the warehouse, dust coming out of illegal sacks, with conditions made worse by a complete lack of extractor fans.
Bill, was this a fair reconstruction of the bottom warehouse at Capes?
Yes, very fair.
There's not too much dust in this atmosphere?
No.
In the disintegrating room, dusty conditions, lack of ventilation, a totally inefficient extractor.
Harry, in the disintegrator room, was it as dusty as you've seen here today?
Yes.
Quite sure about that?
Very much so, yes. I'm positive of it.
So it was a fair reconstruction?
Yes, very fair.
In the carding room, dust from an illegal process deliberately covered up whenever a factory inspector came round. Was this a good reconstruction?
Well, the only difference is that the other's asbestos, this isn't. You mean that way? I mean, this is flour and, you know, you wouldn't get your mask off so quick it were asbestos, you know.
Yeah.
Well, this won't harm you like asbestos. Asbestos will kill bloody elephants, won't it? You know what I mean?